Okay, so what? So exercise 5 here. I can't say, let me see. Yeah, this is just going to follow their step by or their step by step here. I don't think I load up any of the dimensions here. I just go through the steps from the chapter 5 exercise and build this particular part here. This looks like a pulley again. So I'll pull up the dimensions on my book while I'm drawing this thing. So I'm going to jump over. It's just an IPT part. I think they just have you make it one way, and then they just have you modify it to the other way. So, which we've already probably had. You've probably already had to do some modifications to your solids. So this maybe I can show you a couple things um, on your model browser tree here while we go along. But let's see. This is kind of. I feel like these last things are kind of wrapping up our entry to inventor. So these first couple of weeks are just what I feel like we did last semester with CAD, just entry into this program, learn some of the problems with it and high level, and then now we start kind of going into the weeds each week a little bit. Um, and of course, we got to learn how to draft with it a little bit, actually apply some of our drafting standards. But let's start a new standard part here. And I think we just draw this on the front plane here, which is going to be my XY plane. Just remember, yeah. Remember to turn things on and off. It's called visibility, right? Remember that. And I'm just gonna do it on the front XY plane. I think it's just a 2-inch diameter circle at first. So I'll just draw my circle. Maybe I'll just project my center point geometry. So I have it selected. I'll start my circle there. It'll project itself even if you don't project it. You snap into it. I'll just do mine on here too. I think we're just extruding this thing a 1/4 inch, right? Yeah. Is that right? If you're ever following along with the readings in the book here, the terminology uses is kind of a little bit weird. And I think Kennedy pointed out to me, one of the steps when I say change the view, like once I've done this, change the view to an isometric home view. And that's just kind of weird. I don't really do that. Just once I'm done with my sketch, I just say finish, right? Just remember your home view is up here, like by your navigation wheel. If you click the home view, it is kind of like a 45, so you can see all 3 planes. This is helpful. I do use it, especially when I've lost my bearing on a big part, or I don't know if I'm upside down or right side up. I mean, your planes do change color to help you know that you're on the underside or the top side of them. But if you lose your bearing, I always feel like home button is a great one to reset, so I know where my bearings are in model space. So other than that, I don't worry too much about doing everything the same way he does in here. But yeah, I think it's just a 1/4 inch extrusion, and whether it's away from you or towards you is okay. Um, you'll see me probably starting next week. I'll probably start to do a few more symmetric type here, and the reason why I would is because it'll put my plane in the middle of my part. So what you'll learn next week when we start building assemblies is sometimes the preloaded geometry that's in my part, which I feel like are the axes, the planes, and the center point, the origin point. Sometimes I strategically use those to constrain parts together in an assembly, and because that geometry already exists in all parts, and it's a nice way to actually constrain things together by their planes of existence or whatever. So there are times I probably use the centered more than I'm using these first couple weeks later, and we'll see why. But for here, it doesn't really matter. I'm just extruding maybe away from my sketch or burying my sketch, either way. But it's a 1/4 inch extrusion for this thing, right? And then I, they put the holes in here. I could have put the hole, to me, I could have put it in the same sketch in this particular one. Oh no, we're gonna do a new sketch and start it on this front plane again, which is fine. I can turn off these then. I don't need them. But um, I think he does a new sketch here. Um, if it were me, I would. I don't think it gives me like a bolt circle on this though. I think it just says it's a 3/8 hole we're gonna draw here somewhere, not here, but sorry, I should have dimensioned that when I did it, but dimension it at 375, 3/8 hole. It's on center over here. If I drag this thing, sorry, I'll get off my. It's on center here. I don't think it gives us any dimensions of where that is. So in order to constrain it, I would need to know, its bolt circle or a distance off of the center point or something out from an edge or something. So it's definitely going to be centered vertically this way, which I haven't done yet. But I don't think it puts me on a radius outside from the center. No, for whatever reason, he just decides not to give us a dimension there, from what I can see. Maybe halfway, sure. I don't know. This is two, so me, I would probably draw like some. In order for me to constrain something like this, I'm going to project some geometry to constrain it. I would probably choose to project like one of my planes here, my vertical plane like this. And then you can do a coincident constraint to that, or you could do a vertical constraint. But even if you do a coincident constraint from like center point to this, that will constrain it there. So now it's constrained on on that particular axis, which is really my it looks like an axis, but it's a plane, a YZ plane projection that I've done. I would turn that to construction. And then I would want to have some radius that it's out away from, and I would probably do that as a construction circle. And yeah, if you turn on construction, sometimes that's an easy way to make your construction circles. But if it's halfway out, it'd be like a 1 inch, I guess. I don't know if that's what he really intended, but and then this just needs to constrain to that, which really me dragging and dropping it just constrained it actually, which is not normally. You usually have to do like a coincident constraint to that, but now I'm just constrained to there. So that thing is constrained. So I just went halfway. Maybe that's what it is. And then I'll say finish. And then this one just gets extruded. I don't know. He doesn't do like a full through, right? He does like constrain, like mine did for some reason. Yeah, if I was in there, I'm gonna go back in to edit this sketch here. Um, Mine, that is that constraint. I would just delete that one. So if it didn't automatically constrain, then you have your option to constrain it however you want. Mine would probably be another coincident constraint. Like I'd probably use that and the circle and then to this. Well, I might have to do, let me see. Yeah. I would probably like if I had drawn in this construction circle, I would probably use a coincident constraint to the center of my circle and then to this, and that will pull it together. A lot of the trouble is just learning how the constraints work, right? And then not over constraining, even though it won't let you, it'll give you all those errors if you're trying to, and that can be frustrating. But yeah. So I just did a coincident constraint of these, and you have both of these projected. You have both of these built. Yeah, I had to project that one, then I had to draw this one. And then I'm really not picking an intersection point. I'm actually picking, for the coincident constraint, I'm picking the center of circle and then this, and then it will drive those together and that's because my circle's already first constrained to this, so it can only drive it down to that circle. This one, yeah, it's not projected. That is drawn. That is me drawn in. Yeah, yeah. And I'm just using that as a measurement, essentially, is how I'm using that. But I don't use a measurement. I'd rather put it on a bolt circle. I'm going to finish that sketch though. This one's going to be an extrude cut. I think we just extrude cut this at a 1/4 inch dimension like that. So it's against how I usually do, is through all. And then we actually just put in 1/4 inch dimension. Yeah, those constraints are kind of I could go into that sketch and even constrain it completely different. Um, Because in a lot of ways, there's no like right or wrong way. There's good, better, and best, for sure. And then I think they just pattern this thing around 3 times, right? Like we're doing a circular pattern. Was it able to get it, Lydia? Constrained? Could be. Yeah, I could have done a different way too. But oh yeah. Yeah, I did start mine on my center point and it did lock in immediately. But that's true. If that construction circle hadn't have been constrained, then it won't be constrained to it. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And then once I have it at a quarter inch, I just did a circular array. And so the circular patterning, I'm going to pick a feature pattern. It's right here, pattern. Circular. I'm going to pick this as a feature here. It's on my only feature on my thing, actually. However, I could pattern this whole solid around if I was going to pick some other axis down here, but I'm just going to do this around my solid. So that is it. My rotation axis. I don't really have a. This is interesting because I don't have any geometry. I don't have any sketch that I've drawn. I haven't. So I can just use my existing geometry here, though. Like I could use this Z axis here as my axis of rotation. But that's only if I place my part on the Z axis at which I did at the origin point. My center of my circle part is at the origin point. So this axis would be a good choice to revolve around like this without having to draw some geometry because I don't have any geometry drawn on there to use. So I'd have to use something that pre-exists. I don't know what he does. I don't know what he doesn't really tell me what he patterns around as an axis selection actually. So that's interesting. And then it's just the three in the original one, I think. Yeah. So I just did three. The flip wouldn't look like it did anything here. It would be if I had an odd number of holes potentially, though. It would matter which way I rotated. But this is all symmetrical around 360, so they're all going to be the same amount of degrees between each one as they are. And I'm not going to do anything else fancy about it. I'm just going to say, okay, I've got my 3 holes now. And then it just does a radius in, I think, the front edge here. Here's my front surface. And then it's just going to radius this corner here with a fillet radius of 0.625. That's 1/16 of an inch. So that's just the normal fillet, right? Remember, there's like 3 different types of fillets. I call this one my normal fillet, my simple fillet, which really just gives you the option to enter a fillet radius here, which I need to change to 0.0625, right? Yeah. And then I can select this edge while this dialog box is up. Here's my edge that's getting filleted. Kind of shows its profile. Heck yeah. And I'm just going to keep the advanced properties, the ones that are auto-selected are the ones I'm going to use. Okay. I think that's the done deal until I just want you to edit this now, right? I think I pretty much have the same pattern in my tree. I've got 2 different extrusions, 2 different sketches. I would have combined these into one sketch, I think, but it's okay. And then we've got the circular pattern with its individual occurrences, and then a fillet. Okay, so I think I did the same order of commands. It's just saying, oh, let's how we edit this. I probably already showed, we technically in the assignments, they really haven't asked us to edit stuff. You've probably had to edit stuff as things have messed up on you, which is normal. So to get to chapter 5 and do editing is probably a little bit late because we probably already have had to edit sketches and fix stuff. But it's just a matter of remembering that over here each thing is selectable and I can go into it. And there's a lot of commands on a right click menu, other things that I can do in here too. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do here is edit this now. So, or you mean back before in a different drawing? Oh yeah, I think this is the first drawing they've actually asked us to do some edits to. But and just remember, whenever you use an extrusion or you do some type of command with your sketches, they get consumed, but they don't go away. You can always turn them on with like over here on the browser tree, right click, and then just turn on their visibility if you want to use them for multiple commands. Just remember, they're never like totally gone. They get when they get used, they get consumed, but it doesn't mean you can't turn them back on and use them again over and over again, really. So. But this one, it's just going to make me change. I don't know what it has me do. Just change a dimension to 3. Yeah, I think it makes my first one change to 3. So it wants me to go into this sketch, edit this sketch, sketch 1, enter 3. So I double click in here, say I just want this to be 3, jump out of that thing. If it's dimensionally constrained, like how you set it up, it's going to stay that way. So that my next sketch of holes is still on a 1-inch bolt circle because it was all constrained to that. So I think they have us. I don't know if they have us move those out. I think they have us change how thick my extrusion is, though. Yeah, like a half inch. Yeah, so that's just going to be the first extrusion is editable. Like you can get into this sketch multiple ways, right? It's pretty common for me to just expand my list and get to my sketch, but you can get to the sketch within the feature, right? Here's the edit the sketch in the right click menu of the feature, right? And here's how I would actually edit the feature itself or how I chose to extrude that sketch. So what's that? No, it doesn't. I didn't do a through hole. I did a 1/4 inch. I did it kind of like the book did. This extrusion's actually at an actual 1/4 inch dimension. Then I do if and then if I do what they're having me do, which is like, oh, edit this feature. We want it to be a half inch thick. So I'm going to change the 1/4 inch first extrusion to a half inch, which is just a matter of right clicking, entering. The profile I don't have to change or anything. Just say okay. Now I've got a half inch, but then I have no through holes. That's what I usually avoid by doing through all anyway. Like this is the reason why I am typically a through all person, unless there's a good reason not to. But because that would have already like accepted the half inch change, and it wouldn't have made me have to go in and do a dimensional change on the extrusion for the hole. And really, if I would have included that sketch and never even extruded that part of the hole anyway in the original sketch, then I would even have another, to me, I wouldn't even have another sketch and another extrusion to even deal with. But because I made them in 2 different sketches, I do have another sketch that I have to deal with and that extrusion. I think they just say, oh, yeah, it's no longer through holes. Do they leave it like that or do they change it? I think they change it to a through hole. I don't know. I don't really say. Hmm. I changed the first extrusion to a half inch. So this is now a half inch thick. Remember like how you can measure stuff quick is like right click and there's your measure tool. I think another thing with I want to say here's another like weird hack. I think you can like throw your like if do you like throw your mouse? Let me see here. I was thinking you could like throw your mouse and have this like right click menu, this little wheelhouse menu like show up. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought you could like so if you just if well yeah right clicking shows it up, but I was thinking there was a fast way to get into it, which was like a speed. I don't know how. I thought you could just like move your mouse really quick and it would go move your mouse in the direction of the I don't know something. I remember I don't know. Mine's not doing. Oh, like this, huh? Yeah. I don't. Yes, it'll open up. That's exactly what's happening. It's opening up like around here, and you can change what's in this wheelhouse, I think. I think it's I can't remember how you change this, but I think the wheelhouse changes depending on where you're at in your whether you're in an assembly or whether you're in a part and what's available. But I think you can also change what's here. Yeah, you're right. You like right click and hold, and that went right into the fillet. I don't use that much. I guess it could there would be into extrude or it's just that's kind of a weird way to get to this like menu.
Good way to practice.
Just if you're fast.
Skill,
Yeah.
prediction skill.
No.
Draw a perfect 30-degree angle if you
Yeah, if you always know your measure is up here, then you're back in it, you're into the measure. Measure's right there. Measure. So I don't know, maybe this is handy, maybe this is weird, but So if you ever are holding down, that's me holding down the right click button while I'm doing that. So it's like a speed entry into those commands. Okay, I don't use that much, but I forget that it's there. But let's see here. I think do they have us change this to through, or what do they do? Edit. Oh, they have us change the size of the hole to a 0.125.
So wait, did you not change it to a point five? Recut?
I didn't change the through cut to it.
So it's still point five.
It's still mine's still 0.25. I think it has me change this to a 0.125 hole size in my, and then I go back out. I don't think it has me because it never put me on whatever. I just chose the 1 inch bold circle, so I just kept it there. It doesn't really change the radius of those holes are out. But it does change them to through holes. The only thing is they go into this extrusion here. That size of hole is 125. Yeah, it changed. Yeah, it changed from 375 to 0.125. And then I go into here, sketch two. Oh, sorry, extrusion two. I want to change now. And they would have you change this now to 0.5. I would change it to through all, and then it would solve the problem like that. Yep, that's me editing this feature here, edit feature. And then I click through all. You can enter 0.5 here because now your part is 0.5. I'm just in the habit of doing that and having you guys do it. And I use the to face a lot of times too when I have a face that I'm going to specify how far it needs to go. So yeah, I use all, I mean, I'll use a dimensional one at times too. So I use all three of these functions the most to pick how my whole features are. But I just say okay on this, and I think it's still 3, but I think it has to change us to 6. Yeah, so we're going to edit the circular pattern feature, which is just this first one here. If you explore the circular pattern, it shows what the extrusion is, the feature itself, and then the sketch associated with it. So kind of builds its own little tree here, but we're just going to go into the circular pattern and right click and say edit this feature, and then change the 3 to a 6. If 6 with 3. And I just say okay on that. Then we just get those occurrences, each individual one. And then they just show you that you can suppress one. I think the last thing well, maybe there's more to it here. Let's see here. I'll just go through real quick. It has us edit the fillet, right, to a 0.25 fillet. So that's kind of the last thing is one of the last things is go to the fillet, right click on it, edit its feature, change it from 16th to actually be a 1/4 inch fillet. Yeah, 0.25. So it's kind of a really big fillet now. And then the last thing it says is, oh, you can actually suppress features. I don't do this much. I don't love to do this. Maybe there would be a good reason, especially if it was kind of like this would not be the way I would want to do this. But yeah, say there's one hole. If you right click on an occurrence here, you can hit suppress, and that whole feature just goes away from that list. I wouldn't do that. That's not the way I would probably change my pattern. Like if this is something that I needed to fix, it was just a 5-hole pattern. I would actually do that in the circular pattern edit. Normally, I would edit how many I have and how many degrees they would actually encompass. So I would do that so I didn't have to suppress a feature. It's just that yeah, suppressing features is something that's hard to find if somebody's done that to you. And I have worked with people that is one of their ways they work, and I mean, I guess it's still kind of keeping, the part itself is still keeping track and logging that data, even though it's suppressed. It shouldn't show up on a cut file if you would like to export this file to a laser cut, but it's just something that may show up if you change the file type, even though it's suppressed in Inventor. Will it potentially show up in a CAD file? I don't know. So I feel like we avoided suppressing stuff. You can suppress entire features though. So I could even come in here and choose the fillet and right click, and you'll notice that suppress should be one of the things here. I can choose to be like, oh, I'll just suppress the feature. And I don't do this much either and leave my part this way. If I don't need that anymore, I'll delete it. Another habit you'll see of people is sometimes they'll be like, well, I don't need those anymore. So I move my end of part up above it. And then if it was not, if I will unsuppress it. If I have stuff that's just past the end of parts. Is there a reason for that? I don't know. It could be maybe I've got some construction stuff that I used or some maybe there is some good reasons why I would do this, but generally if it's just not part of the part anymore, I would delete it off that. Um, Clean up my files and not just have suppressed and steps that I don't need anymore just left in here. I feel like that's part of me like doing good part cleanup at the end, especially when I'm working like in a drafting environment where we're working with library parts and we're working with shared parts on assemblies. I would not want to like give somebody this part to share and be like, oh, yeah, just turn off whichever ones you don't want. And it's like, no, how about we make this be what we want with active features. I feel like to me it's kind of a lazy way to get rid of stuff, but there could be reasons for it. So I think it is nice that it can do it. So it's not that it's not used. I just feel like it's not my go-to like how I would omit stuff because I can just delete it too. So there are times when I have sketches that aren't being like consumed by features, and I just turn off those sketches, but they're in my part, and I'd use them as I almost use them as like a layered sketch that I need for something. But I think that's different. Yeah. That's it though. That is the end of like that's the end of that. Now I'll edit a couple of mine. So I'll just stop this one. This is chapter 5 exercise.